So as you can tell, I have a very large box on the table, and if you're really observant, you'll notice what's in that box. But let's go back a little ways to one of my very first videos on this channel, my Ender 5 review, and let's take a look at what I had to say. The real shortcoming in this printer is that I want a bigger build volume. I want one of these at 300 by 300 or even 400 by 400 so I can print high quality helmets or other props. Hopefully, Creality will see this review and start working on it. So that's what I had to say on the Ender 5 back when I did that review. And what's on the table here today? A much bigger Ender 5. And I get to take a look at it and tell you what I think. So let's get this Ender 5 out of the box and put it together and see how it works. Right here on Kersey Fabrications. Let's go. So to say that I'm excited about this review would be an understatement. This is a printer I have been looking forward to getting way before, of course, it even existed in the minds of Creality probably. And as I said, I mentioned it in my review of it right after the initial Ender 5 came out. So I'm excited about this and I'm looking forward to getting this out of this box. And as you can see, my studio here required a little bit of moving around even to get this in the frame. This is a very large package. This is a very new unit. I don't even have specs on it at this point. I asked them to send me specs. No specs yet. So this is Chris from the future, and I wanted to give you a little bit of context as to why I'm trying to guess specs in this video and stuff like that. So first thing you should know, I've had this printer for a couple of weeks now. They sent it to me as a beta test so that I could give them some feedback on what I thought about the printer before it was released. Of course, with that came permission to film what I was working on and then post a video once the official announcement had been made. So now, of course, all the specs are out there, and so if you want to go to the product page, you can look those specs up. The product page you can find in the description of this video. So as you see me guessing specs, I've inserted a couple of funny moments where I guessed correctly, and you'll see where that is. But I hope you enjoy this video. I will have more later. Oh, and one more thing. If you have come here for a particular part of this video, say you didn't come here for the assembly and everything like that, I've inserted time codes in the description because I want you to stick around and actually catch the parts of the video that you came here to see. So check out the time codes in the description, click over to what you want to see, and I appreciate you watching. And so I get to find those out as I pull it out of this box and as I pull it together. And I honestly don't think my workbench is going to be big enough here. So at some point we may have to move things around, and I may have to come up with a clever solution to actually get this all on this table. But first things first, this is a single camera shot for this assembly. The printer's too big, and I don't have a second camera that can do this justice, so we're going to do it from this angle. I hope you catch everything. First things first, well packaged in their high density foam. Pull that out. All right. So first things we see, we have a very large print bed, and we have a beautiful pre-printed manual that includes all of the construction and everything. So first things first, since again, like I said, I didn't receive any specs to this printer, so let me go get the tape measure and let's figure out how big this thing is. All right, tape measure acquired, and I'm having to duck here again, trying to get most of the printer in the frame. What do we got here? So I am looking at 380 by 370. Oh no, let's try that one more time. So if we do this, that's 370 by 380. Interesting dimensions. Probably means a 350 by 350 build volume or build area. We're not to the depth yet. Okay, let's pull our instructions out, set those aside, and let's see, how do we want to work with this? So here is the entire build plate assembly. Looks nice. Take a look at the bottom. If you look at the bottom here, we have our leveling screws, which are already applied. Has a nice aluminum or aluminium based insulation on the bottom. It has foam insulation and then the aluminum on the bottom. It's got this entire mount is actually framed with aluminum. So it's a very sturdy mount. As you can tell, this is going to be a dual Z rails on here. We have our connectors for our heating bed, which these are some beefy wires. We've got probably these 14 or 16 gauge wires. I don't see it on here. And we have a nice a mass connector on here. It's an XT90. Looks like one of the official ones. And of course our thermistor. I'm going to carefully set this aside down here behind the table. It's going to be one of the later parts, so we don't need that yet. Have an accessory box. In the accessory box, we're going to have tools and zip ties and USB drives. Everything we're going to need to put this together, including our filament holder. Actually having a nice American plug here, as well as a spatula. We'll come back to that later when we need to put this together. And we'll set that aside. Pull out some more of this packing foam. One of the classic Creality mini spools, which is way more than I've been getting with other other printer manufacturers. It's their usual white mini spool. It's not zip sealed, it's not vacuum sealed anymore, but I'm not really concerned. Let's see, what else do we have? This is nice. You can tell that it has been cut appropriately to hold all of the Z screws in the correct safe shipping position so that we don't have any bent Z screws. We have a stack of extrusions. This is going to be, for all intents and purposes, this should be our Z height. And we are looking at quite probably, this is about 51 centimeters. So we might actually have almost, it's probably going to be a 400, 450, maybe even a 500 millimeter Z height, but we'll find out when we get more into the firmware and such. Let's see what we've got. So this, very familiar. It looks much like the Ender 5's, looks like the Ender 5's top. And as you'll notice, they went with a very similar design. I have the same hot end here as on the other printer. It has the same cooling as the other printer. Comes with a silicone sock, which you can't see, but this one also comes with a BL Touch for auto leveling since it is such a large bed, which many people will be super happy. It is an authentic BL Touch. It's written on the side. And yeah, that's nice. What else can we see from this? It looks like I have a little bit of, like this is a bit bent, but that flips right back. This will all get straightened up when we put on the Z axis. My belts are nice and tight here. The end stop is 3D printed. This may be a pre-production thing, though. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It's just a cover for the end stop, just to keep it from getting damaged in any way. Looking at the other side here, we again, much like the Ender 5, we have the single stepper motor with the dual rods coming out of it for the driving of the Y-axis. And here's our extruder underneath the bottom. And it looks like it actually has a filament sensor on it this time. We'll find out more about that later. And standard Creality extruder, probably going to need to be replaced. I'm not a big fan of these plastic ones. But this one feels good. You know, this particular one is not too weak. It doesn't look like it's going to flex a lot on me. So that's really nice. Let's see what else we can find in here. Here is one of these Z rails. Again, this is upside down, by the way, because the motor should be on the bottom. But we are looking at probably a 400 height. The screw gives us about 450. You're not going to be able to actually go the full 450, so it's probably a 350 by 350 by 400 is my guess on this. And as I mentioned, this is a dual Z rail. So that's what we have here is the other one. Dual Z's. And yet another layer of this cake is removed. And we are finally to the base. Now, for this base, as you can probably tell, or maybe not, this table is not as big as this printer. This table is about 500 millimeters. And the base is 550 or so, give or take a little bit. So after I pull this out, I'm going to need a place to put it. Here is the Ender 5 base, the Ender 5 Plus base. We have a very large electronics enclosure. We have a large LCD display. Let's see. Large fan for the power supply. It is set for 230. I'm going to change that before I forget it later. I'm going to change that to 115. That's done. Always do that first on a printer. Saves you a lot of time later. Got a parts cooling fan. All of the electronics are here. The SD card, a micro SD card, is in a convenient location right, let's see if I can turn this around, right up here in the front, along with our micro USB connection. So, and here are all the wires that we would expect. Let's pull this out for a minute. So I think that is it for the box. If I find that I'm missing anything, I have some little 3D printed clips here that look like they're for cable management, but since they're 3D printed, I don't think they quite made it. So let's put this off to the side. I don't really have a place for this. Give me a minute. Well, that happens. Nothing's broken. Okay. So we've got that 550 base. Do I have a 550 piece of wood? No. Let's see. Is this 550? Yes, this will hold it. All right. So, board. This should do it. That doesn't move. We've got a place to work. So let's pick the printer back up. Okay, there. Still can't completely see it, but I don't want to cut my head off out of frame the whole time either. So, there we go. As again, there's what you're missing. How does it look? Again, we have some of these, like I said, what I think they're just cable management clamps, and they are 3D printed, and they're deforming a bit. So probably can find the model for that and print some more, or quickly design one for myself and reprint it. Not a big deal. Looks really good. Still has the protective cover on the touchscreen, which I'm going to leave on for now, particularly while I'm still building it. Let's take a look at the guidebook. Usual warnings, contents, preface. Thank you for choosing our products. No problem. And there's instructions and videos on the TF card in case we need them, in case I need to get my laptop. And it tells me about all of the parts, general list of everything, which you should be able to find in the box. And then we have assembly. So I'm going to get out my parts out of the brown box. All right, so let's pull everything out of this box. Again, this is our tools bag. We have our snips, which might come in handy. We have tie wraps in these beautiful black color. Have our nozzle cleaner, which I'll probably put back in the bag. And then we have various tools that they include. 2 separate wrenches, it looks like 5 hex keys, and a small screwdriver. Have our USB drive, which we may need if these instructions aren't sufficient. They usually are though. Also in here we have our power cable, which I already have one down here, so I'm not going to need right now. We have our filament spool holder, which I'll go and pull out. I'm going to leave in the USB cable, which it comes with. And these are components that we're going to need as well. Let's put this back down underneath. What's in the bag? M525s, M530s. It comes with a guarantee in a bag, which can go back in the box also. And filament holder nut. We have 4 by 10 millimeter screws, and they have some lock washers in there. And we have, these are going to be our spare parts. It comes with a extra nozzle. It comes with extra hose clamps, which are really nice, that hold on your fittings, hold your fittings tight, and it comes with 1 extra fitting. So we'll put those away as well. Okay, we have all of our wiring out of the way. And step 1, we have the 2040 profiles, which we'll need. Okay, put those off to the side. See, are these symmetrical? These are not symmetrical. Remember, I made this mistake in the last video. Both ends, I believe, are tapped, but in one end we have extra screw holes on both sides, and the other end we do not. You can line all these up where they match, and then I won't forget. I hope. There we go. So all 4 of those do appear to be the same otherwise. Okay, they are showing that the hole goes in the top, which is what I expect. Keep the front bottom facing you. And then I'm going to take M5 by 25s, which also have lock washers on them. I think these are lock washers. I'm going to need 8 of these with the washers on them. Yep. These are really nice screws. They have a very nice glossy paint job on them. I know that seems silly to say, but it did stand out to me that these were really well painted. Or I'm guessing anodized, because paint would gunk it up. So, and I have 16 of those, just the right number for the build. Okay, and we're just going to assemble these through the bottom. I need to find the right size key to assemble this. Okay, it's the largest of the keys. And then I'm going to carefully put this together. Again, keeping the one with the holes at the top. I have to admit, while I'm down here, I would love to see what's in this case. Okay. Last one, notice I left this top center one as the last one so that it would not fall down while I was trying to get to it. I don't know what to expect when I get in here, so I'm carefully going to pull this back. Okay, interesting. So I'm going to do this fan plug here, and then I can put this aside while we take a look. So nice big LCD controller. Interesting because we have the SD card slot here on the main board. There's also a hidden one here underneath. And this is a Creality board V2.2. There's actually an extra connector to have a second extruder, although obviously that's not populated. They actually have a separate MOSFET that they use to heat the bed, because the size of the bed, they've got this DC MOSFET on here, similar to what you've seen on other printers. And let me see, what else do I see? I can't tell you anything at this point about the stepper drivers. They are under heat sinks, and without even testing this board, I am not going to pull those off yet, because I want to make sure that I don't damage anything, particularly without me noticing. So let's leave that where it is. We'll obviously be able to tell if these are silent steppers. We'll be able to tell due to the fact that it will be silent, and if they're not, then they are going to be you know, the DRV drivers that we're familiar with, or they'll be the A4988 drivers. So that's it for what's in here. Oh, and this is a Chang Lang power supply, which I've actually seen in other printers lately. And this is a 500 watt 24 volt power supply. So it has a nice beefy power supply to support that bigger bed. I'm going to put the fan back in where we got it and button this up. What's next? Next up, we're going to put the top on. We're going to need some M525s, which are the ones we already have out. Bottom frame, top frame, M525s. We're going to need 8 of those. I'm going to put this on top, and then there's going to be one in each top, and then one in the side. And hopefully that will square up my frame a little bit. Now, obviously, this is going to go down, but I have to figure out which way it goes. Not that way. So that's the back, just like it was on the other Ender 5. Okay. Don't think that's going to fall off now that it's on there. So the first one I'm going to put on each of these is the top one. I'm going to screw all 4 down. Number 1, so that you don't have any chance of it falling. Number 2, so that we don't tighten any of these down yet until they're all squared. Did I mention this printer is big? Because it is. I'm using my full reach here to get to the back of this printer. So it's quite the beast. Now we'll tighten down these sides. The belts came really nicely tightened. They're right in the extrusions. This one's above the extrusion down here. It fits right between the extrusions with no problems. Okay, all those are tightened. And I can't really trust my board here to be level since I've had to clamp it to my table. I haven't clamped it on all 4 corners, but it feels very stable. Again, almost everything on here, well, the uprights, the sides are all 2040s. The base are 2020s with what appears to be those plastic brackets. It's hard for me to tell without having to hold them. No, they look like plastic. These are plastic brackets in all 4 of the corners. That's moving pretty well. Put that out of the way. It's really moving well. This one moves well. No binding or anything, so the way they send it to me seems to work well. BL Touch tip looks a little bent. I'm gonna get some pliers to those before we get started. It may work the way it is. Doesn't mean I like it. Don't know if that happened pre or post shipping. I may not mess with it too much because last thing I want to do is break it. But it does go all the way up and down. It's just not super straight. Now we are going to put the Z's on. So Z-axis are going to be the M530s. Just the next bag we have. Each of these also already have a washer on it. And the Z's are going to go on the side. Motor should go on the bottom. Be careful, make sure I don't hit anything. And these should be able to go in here. They do already have the holes pre-drilled. So I haven't talked a lot about the new features. We will get to that obviously, but for those worried about the original Ender 5's cantered lever design, this takes care of that because we have dual Z's now. So the entire bed will be supported on both the left and the right as it raises and lowers the bed. Move this over, get it out of our way, and be ready. And as we learned on the other side, we'll push this all the way against that. Okay. We have both sides, the left and the right, attached. So let's see if this still moves. And it does, and it hits the end stop just fine. No problem there. It also is moving fine. I can feel the wheels moving, which means it's not just sliding. Same thing here and here. Here. So this one could be tightened a bit because I actually have one wheel that when this moves, the wheel is not moving. This one right here. So you can tell if your things are properly tightened, if it moves easily, but all the wheels move. There we go. So just took a little bit of adjustment, but it's good. Okay, we are on to frame assembly part 4. This is, let's see, make sure the front of the base is facing me. Place the hotbed on the support plate of the Z-axis frame and align with the profile holes on it. Using 4 M4x10s, connect the hotbed to the support plate on the Z-axis frame. Make sure the hotbed is flat and all 6 screws are securely fastened. Let's try this again. Should be able to go in. I'm going to have to go in from the top still. Lay it down. So either these screws on this part are either a little bigger than they should be, or this hex key is a little smaller than it should be, because it's not tightening them quite as good as it should. So I'm going to come behind it here in a minute with my own screwdriver and see if I can tighten it a little bit better. There we go. Okay. Now, there's still going to have to be left and right leveling here because nothing forces it to be level. They're going to stay relatively close to each other just due to the metal holding it together. But that will have to be leveled left to right at some point. Could take it all the way down. Maybe there's some sort of auto leveling. We do have the auto bed level. We'll have to see what they've built into the printer. Okay. So there's a lot of words that basically describe that we need to assemble this filament holder, spool holder. And this is the standard Creality spools. I'm going to take this in here. Looks like they've got it on the inside. Okay, so we can take it on the inside, and then this snaps on and just sort of hand tightens, and that's fine. And then they're showing, so the printer is so big now that we can actually do our filament inside. They are showing to put it right here, which makes perfect sense because our filament sensor and extruder are right there. Okay, there we go. Spool holder in place. And now it is wiring time. All they show pretty much is match up your letters and colors. Make sure we select the correct voltage is actually on here, that we should select the correct voltage, so that's nice. Let's go ahead and do all the wiring. Look, you know, remember my first video? This was in Chinese. It is not in Chinese this time, so I can read it. This is Fun 2. It matches the same colors, so we're going to assume that's right. We have red and black here, which they have labeled as Fun 1. Alrighty. What else do we have here? No, this is our ZYLtech. Fun, fun. Oh, fun. I guess it's fan. Let me see. Does it say fan or fun? It says fun. So apparently fans are fun. Because the ZYLtech has its own connector. There we go. So all of those connectors are here together. Now the rest of these are going to go to different parts of the printer. This is E. E is the extruder, so E goes here. That's to the extruder motor. I say this is Z1. What side is Z1? Does it matter? Nope, it does not matter. They're both just labeled Z. This is pretty short. I'm going to take the short one. The side I feel is closer. Okay. We'll come back to the right one. This is Z2, definitely longer. Take it underneath the bottom here so that we're sure that we're not catching anything. That goes in without any problems. Let's keep going with the ribbons. So Y, let's see if we can get this in our connector now. And now that fits. No big deal. Okay, and this is going to be our Y end stop, which is right here. Okay, and last is going to be our X, which is, don't exactly know how they want us to run it. Last time on the other printer it was run this way, so the X is right here and then the end stop is right here, so that should take care of the X. We'll see if they include anything, and we have one more here, which is for the filament sensor. So we're going to put that right there because that's the last thing missing, a plug of any sort. Go back around. Looking at the manual, the next steps are going to be turning on, checking out the screen. We're going to load some filament. I'm going to do the leveling first probably. And then I think, as it's describing here, we're going to do auxiliary leveling first. We're going to get the bed level, and then after that it has auto leveling, which is what we're going to use the ZYLtech for. It has software installation, which is a Creality slicer, which I found on the small little CR100 that we tested. Didn't work on my kid's Windows 7 box then. I can try this one on Windows 10, see how it works. Has a nice circuit diagram for the wiring. Basically shows off what I saw inside, and that is it. So this printer is assembled. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to flip it around here, we'll plug it in, see if it smokes. So one thing I haven't done is done any cable management. Before we do any printing, cable management has to be done so that we don't catch on anything. There's no description I saw in here about cable management. There may be something on the drive, but I think I got this. I'm going to go around back here, see if we can tidy everything up. So here's what I did for minimal cable management. I zip tied this loom up there near the top to keep it moving with the X gantry. Didn't do anything else around this part at this point. On the upper left here, I used a zip tie to get all of these wires out of the way. When I'm done, I can of course attach more zip ties there to make that look nicer. And then finally, the last part here is for the filament runout sensor. I ran that up and over to the right and put a zip tie there. Did not mention the Bowden tube. I don't think I saw it in there. That needs to be attached. So I'm going to plug that in here. And as I mentioned, it did come with the Bowden tube. I'm going to just keep switching around how to say that. The Bowden tube with little connectors. So I'm going to grab one of those. I'm going to snap on that so it doesn't come out. These are the only things that's moving in this printer, that and the Z. So we're good. Okay. Let's now take a look at turning this on. Power switch right here in the front. We hear the BL Touch moving. Ender 5 Plus logo comes up. Creality logo. It's actually loading. It's probably loading all the menu items on this display. And now we have a menu. Okay, so here's the user interface on the printer. It has a print, which probably just goes directly to accessing the SD card. If we press that, that's exactly what it does. There's a temp, which allows us to do automatic temp settings for the PLA. We have manual temperature control, which allows us to set the temperature or turn on cooling. We have just cooling, which will do a cool down. And we have fan off or fan on, as you can see here. All right. So lastly, we have settings, which has our leveling menu, our refuel menu, which is our filament change menu. We have movement, motor disabling, language settings, and printer info. Printer info tells us the model, firmware revision, print size. So we do have our official print size, which is 350 by 350 by 400. And there's a company link to the Chinese website. So next up, we are going to do the bed leveling, which is going to do an auto home. And that auto home is using the it's using the BL Touch for its homing. All right. So after we've done the leveling, it shows us our mesh here, which is really nice. So there's an auto leveling here, as well as a measured bed leveling, which is what we're actually going to do first, so that we make sure that our bed is physically level before we do the mesh bed leveling, which will account for any it will account for any irregularities that there are in the actual build surface given the size of the print bed. So one thing I'm going to do right here to make bed leveling more, to make it easier and possibly more accurate, is I want both sides of the bed to be square with one another. So to do that, and I should only have to do this once, this should not get out of alignment once I've done it once. At least I hope not. So what I'm going to do, I've got a small ruler here, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to measure that this side and this side are the same distance on the ends. So I'm going to put this here and go, and I move my screw to where, for me, I'm going to do it 3 centimeters. And I'm going to get as close as I can. It doesn't have to be super precise, but the closer I can get it, the easier bed leveling is going to be. All right, so 3 centimeters on both sides. Now I know at least that my left and my right are as level as possible. So to level this bed properly, we need it to be up to temp. So what I'm going to do a manual heat up. I'm going to set this. It's a really nice interface here. I can actually type in the temp instead of having to up and down it. So I'm going to do 200. Nope, not 220. 200 on the hot end. I'm going to do 60 on the bed. Okay, that will now heat up. I can actually watch that happen. Okay, so we're about up to temp now. So while this is finishing up, we're at 198 and 52. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back again. I'm going to go to settings, leveling. That's going to cause this to auto level. Or excuse me, it's going to cause it to home. Now that that's up to temp, we need to make sure that our Z offset is correct between the BL Touch and the tip. We're close, but not really there, so I'm going to have to minus the Z offset to go up. Okay, that's a little too tight. Go up one more. That's pretty good. All right, so we're going to call that our Z offset. Now we're going to do what's called aux leveling to get the corners accurate. It's going to home again. And this is the manual bed leveling you would do on any other printer. What's great is this printer is using both. It gives us the manual first, which is going to get our bed physically level. And then we have the automatic leveling, which will take care of any discrepancies in such a large build plate. Okay, so I'm going to go to this front one first. Okay, that is way too tight. I need to turn it until we are loose again. Luckily, this is a glass build plate, which should keep us from damaging anything. I'm going to get it where I like it. Okay, we're going to go to 3. Still making sure I'm not touching the bed. I'm going to go back to the back corner. This one's too loose. I'm going to tighten it by turning it to the right. And that's good. And we're going to go back to the final one. Also loose, so to the right to tighten it up. Okay. And let's go back to the first one. I always like to go around twice because the whole bed is going to change geometry as you level each corner. Okay, now to make sure it's right, let's try to go back to 1, which is the center, and see if that's level. And that's pretty good. So now that we're done with that, we're going to go back. Now we can use the measured bed leveling. And what this is going to do is it's going to go to 16 different points on the bed using the BL Touch to find out what the offset is from what it thinks is level. And what it does is it creates a mesh that you can actually see on the screen, and that mesh is how it determines where it needs to make minor adjustments in the layers. One thing I'm noticing, even on this beta unit, excuse me, this is a beta unit, I don't believe they have their BL Touch offsets to the left and right quite set correctly, because it seems to be leveling more on the left than it is the right. So it should be compensating for how far it is away from the print head. It doesn't appear to be doing that because it's measuring way closer to this edge and not this edge. See how far this BL Touch? It's a good distance from this edge, where when it's over here it's a lot closer. Means that the mesh isn't going to be exactly right from where it thinks it is. Okay, so since it succeeded, we should be able to tell that our bed is relatively level. If we look at our offsets, we do know that it is a bit higher on this corner than this corner, and it is a bit bulgy in the middle, but by 0.1 millimeters, so perfectly acceptable. I'm going to turn auto level on, then I'm going to go back. Okay, and then at this point I think we're ready for a test print, which is what I've been waiting on. Alright, so what do we have? First of all, we need to get our sample filament. We'll start with that. Filament goes here. You're not going to be able to see all of this, but it's fairly standard. I'm going to go up through the filament sensor. And when the filament is in, it's actually got a click to it. So there is actually a switch in here detecting this. The light comes on, so you can see the light. And then we go straight up into our extruder. And then once we're in there, we should be able to use the refuel button and say feed. And it is feeding. Ever so slowly. So, that's not working. So, I love all these auto load, auto unload. It's sometimes really helpful, but most of the time you can do it faster yourself. Ooh, that came out easy. No problems there. Okay, so that was easier. I believe it's sticking well. That's a good sign that we've got it good and clean. Then we have the USB drive that it came with. Pull out the SD card. This is an 8 GB SD card. Pop it into the side. It goes contacts. Excuse me. It goes contacts up, I believe. Yes, contacts up. And go back. Let's go back to the main menu. We'll say print. It's not finding anything on there. Alright, so now I need to go to the computer, see if there's anything in the root directory, because it is not finding it. 1 second. Alright, so there definitely wasn't any pre-sliced G-code on the SD card. So I found one of their models. It was a monkey cup that was already on the SD card. And what I did is I opened up Cura. Rather than installing theirs, I like Cura. So I opened up Cura. I installed, this is Cura 421. I added a Ender 5 profile and then changed the dimensions of the bed to 350 by 350, Z height 400, and then I sliced this. So it should print this in the middle. Let's see how it does. In contacts up. Let's see if it finds it this time. Go to print. Yep, so this one is CE5 monkey. I'm going to select it and I'm going to say print. Print. Yep, there it goes. It's going straight away. We have some filament still on here. That was from me extruding earlier. Let's see how it does. Oh, apparently as part of its... this must be built into its profile to go and do a re-level each time, because I did not have a G29 in my G-code. So I don't really mind the re-leveling. It's a bit unnecessary because it's not going to deform that much differently between each print. But at least this way I guess you can guarantee that it's level per heat up. It just takes a little bit longer to get started. It's going to do a priming line on that side of the bed, which is good. And it's going to drag it with it. Alright, it's looking pretty good. Other than this bit of filament here that's going to get in the way. It looks like we're not really close enough. Might be better off with the auto leveling off until they fix their BL touch offset. So let's try this again. We're going to go back, print. Now that I've turned off auto bed leveling, see if it saves us some headache. Okay, just going to print that priming. So it did do what it said. I turned off bed leveling, and so it didn't do it anymore. I do a couple of swipes to prime the nozzle. And it's going to print. My bed leveling was good to begin with. We still won't need this BL touch. And the looks like I'm still better off without the bed leveling, which doesn't surprise me. It is a big piece of glass. It is going to be mostly level, and have to do a big test later to find out like how level it is. But it's looking good. This is printing better than with auto leveling turned on. Right away, I think it's worth noting that definitely not 2208 steppers. I am guessing by the sound of it, it is A4988s. A lot of power in those drivers, but not a lot of quiet. So I think that's what I'm hearing. Definitely doesn't appear to be quiet steppers. A little disappointing for a printer of this caliber not to. And especially since we know that they have those on some of their other boards, I think they could also retrofit them onto this board, even though it's different. But so far so good. Just to let you know, I do believe I sliced this one at 80 millimeters per second. That probably means that this is either printing at 20 or 40, depending on what the defaults were. I changed no defaults inside the slicer. Left the temp at 200, the bed at 50, which is the Cura defaults. So this first test print finished on the Ender 5 Plus, and I have a monkey cup. This is a test print that was available on the micro SD card that they sent over. It was not pre-sliced, so I used the latest Cura 421 on here. And let's take a look. Hopefully it will focus in on this cup. Go around one time for you, and then I'll give you my opinion. So overall, layers look extremely nice just from layer to layer. It's supposed to look like a wicker basket, and it kind of does. Inside, you may see that there's some stringing on the inside here. That is probably just not the best retraction settings from Cura. I used the default Cura profile that comes with 421 for the Ender 5 and just increased the bed size. Didn't do anything else. That's where I got this from. I just wanted to see kind of what the default settings would do. The only real thing that stands out, there is not the best consistency on some of the extrusions. Some of them look a little bit heavier than others. The other part is some of these places, like right in here, looks like there was some stringing also. Can't tell you if it was the slicer or the printer at this point. I'm going to blame the slicer initially. Haven't been super happy with Cura 421 personally. So the next prints I'm going to be doing, I actually have gone back to my favorite slicer, which is Cura 3.6. And I've sliced those with Cura 3.6. We'll see what the quality difference is on that. Not only that, but this is the default filament that comes with this printer. I'm also not familiar with the quality of this filament. I will be switching to ZYLtech filament for the rest of this one, which I am familiar with. This is the Uncle Jessy gunmetal. This is the Uncle Jessy gunmetal silver I will be printing with. I'm going to be printing the test prints that I'm about to do, as well as the large test print I'm about to do, all with this filament. I can vouch for this filament. This stuff works really well. I bought several rolls of this to test this printer due to its large print volume. And notice this filament looks really nice, has a nice metallic color, and ZYLtech ships these vacuum packed just like they're supposed to be. So let me get this all swapped over. I'm going to load up the calibration cubes that I've pre-sliced to test on here, and we'll get to printing. Alright, so this print is done. All of it printed to completion. So let's take a look at what I've got here. Should come right off the glass, and it does. So first of all, did have a lot of stringing. This stringing is actually mostly caused by the fact that we had such a long travel from edge to edge, and what happens is the filament, even if it's retracted, it will ooze. This is not noise from it actually pulling away from it, but actually coming to it because it's oozing by the time it gets here, and that's what's causing this. So If you're going to be traveling this far between parts on a print bed, you definitely are going to have to change your retraction, make it a lot further so that that oozing takes less time. But this should come off fairly easily, or at least for the most part. The print quality is gorgeous. This filament is printing beautifully on this printer. That is a beautiful, beautiful part. You can see the reflection on it. And top layer looks really good. All of my seams are closed in. So really happy with the quality on this one. So let's check this front left one. Check out the X direction. Almost perfect. We're at 1998. If we move it around a little bit, there's 20 even. Try the Y. We are at 2015, 2013, 2001 near the base. So there's some bulging obviously on some of this because of that stringing. Let's try a little bit like this. Yeah, so now we're up to a few thousandths. We're at like 1993, 1994, and vertically we are at 2002. That really doesn't get any better out of the box. That's actually more impressive than I even expected. Back corner, same quality here. No real difference in the corner. You see that reflection? Again, on the Z, a little separation in some of the top lines, but not too bad. So again, X, 1998. This is our Y direction. We'll turn it around. We got 2003, and the Z direction, 1997, 1995, 1999. Back corner. Again, I'm doing all of this calibration because the print bed is so massive. I want to make sure that we're getting really nice, even prints across the print bed. Same quality that I was seeing on the other ones. Beautiful walls. This is actually probably printing better than my Ender 5 did out of the box. I mean, the quality is just excellent. Bottom looks beautiful, nice smooth finish. Z, this Z is probably even better than the back corner, about the same as the front corner. Check these directions again. 1996 on the X, 1999 on the X. The Y, 2002. And finally the Z, 1997, 1998, 1997. One more. Same quality on this corner. Can't really tell on this side because of those wisps that got tucked to it, but the Y is beautiful. I'm seeing, I didn't check this before, maybe a single case of ringing on these, but I mean, I have to really look for it. It's not pronounced and it's not wavy. So X on this, 20 even, 1996, 1995. Y, 2008. Again, this is more difficult to do it this way. 2006, 2004. I'd have to sand these little zits off to really get an accurate measurement. Otherwise, I'm possibly modifying the results one way or the other. 1990. So maybe not quite as good in the Y direction as the other ones, but again, still within a few thousandths of a millimeter. And in the Z, so this must have been a higher corner because I am seeing a little bit of height difference in this one. You got 1982, 1984, 1983. So what I'm going to do, given that all of my other ones were good, I'm going to check the center first, and then if this one is still off, if this is the only one off, then I will just lower that down a little bit so that it extrudes a little bit more. Let's grab the big model in the center. Let's take a look at the quality. You see, it's a really nice finish. It is, I see more differences. So I'm looking at it from like this kind of angle. Let's try to get that. But from that kind of angle, the lines that I'm seeing are actually from the extrusion differences, probably going from different directions, and not as much from the actual print quality. Same thing on the Y. I mean, there are a few here that I can see, but overall, it's really beautiful. Bottom looks good. Top, again, no gapping in my top layer. So, like I said, really impressed with the quality, better than I even expected. Let's check the dimensions on this. Now, this should be a 40 by 40 by 40 cube. So, X on this one. Again, this is harder to be dimensionally accurate because we are building it bigger. So, any errors are going to be magnified from the smaller cubes, which is why I do a larger cube. So at the top, 3976 on X, 3981, and 3982. So about 3980 on average, which isn't bad for this size cube. So that's about what, we're talking 0.05 difference, or a 5% difference? No, I don't know if it's that much. Well, I'll do the math later. Maybe I'll put it on the screen here. Anyway, so that's not bad given the size of the cube. Let's do Y. This one's even better. We got 3990-ish. Arms are getting tired here. 4003, 3989. Oh, I'm off again, sorry. There we go. On the Z, 3994. It's really good accuracy for such a large print. 3984, 3984. Again, so about the same accuracy across the printer. Between the quality and the accuracy out of the box, I couldn't be happier, even in large prints. Happy with this one. It's time to switch to a larger print. So let's get going on that and see what this printer really can do. So it's all done. Here we have the Mandalorian helmet from the Mandalorian, and this build took 64 hours and 13 minutes. So just shy of 3 days, about 2.5 days. As you can see, it looks beautiful, minus a little bit of overhang problems here that actually are setting problems, not printer problems. Although some of this is caused by the same sort of cooling issues that you would see on any of the Creality printers, since it uses the same hot end assembly with the cooler and everything. So let's take a look at this. Since this printed on glass, I'm not too worried about it, since when it cools, we'll get contraction on the bed, and that causes this usually to pop off. So let's take a look. Let's see, will we get pop off without any need for, look at there, pop. That's it. This is why I use glass beds. Again, this one was cleaned in the sink, dish detergent, hot water, paper towels, dry it with paper towels or let it drip dry, but that's how you get it to stick like this. Anyway, so let's take a look at this helmet. This is, again, unmodified Ender 5 Plus, just the way it came to me. This is a beautiful helmet. The layer lines are just about gorgeous. This was printed at 50 millimeters per second as the nominal speed, and you'll notice every one of these layers is almost exactly where it's supposed to be. Obviously there's small variation, but all of it is really, really nice. All of these surfaces, take a look at that. Let's see what it takes to actually pull these supports out. Should be able to get it out. Oh yeah, that's not too bad. Notice there is some stringing inside. That is a combination of possibly being able to tweak the retraction settings, and also, like I said, a little bit of cooling issue on this printer. Probably going to replace the cooling. Got a video coming up on that, by the way. If I haven't already released it, there's a video on cooling Creality printers. There's the supports. Won't need those anymore. And supports on the side of the helmet. These come right off. Should pull off some other supports with it. Yeah, the supports are coming off really nice on this filament. Again, this is the ZYLtech Uncle Jessy gunmetal silver. Just throwing it on the floor because I don't care. And there'll be some more cleanup here, but look how well this printed. Look how easily these supports come off. Again, this is my Ender 5 profile that I had for my other Ender 5 printers, and it's just working beautifully to get all of these supports off. On the back here, you can see where the supports came off. The overhangs look really good where it was supported. There is just a little bit of extra, you know, oozing or whatever where it was coming off the supports or where it was traveling first. Comes off really easily, which means that if I take a knife to it or if I want to sand that down, it's going to be even better. On the inside, a little bit of supports. Let me get this cleaned up a little bit. Let's see if it fits my big head, and we'll go from there. So, taking a look at the inside of this helmet, let's see if we can get the lights. There we go. Notice it is pretty clean on the inside. We do have some cooling, I think, related issues where we've got some, you know, stringing down here that's not so great. That can be cleaned up. Luckily, it's the inside of the bucket. The outside, again, just looking amazing. I have to admit, this is better than an Ender 5. This is better than my Ender 5 was out of the box. I wouldn't touch the motion system on this one. You know, you saw me add the rails to my Ender 5. This Ender 5 Pro will not be getting rails because if it keeps printing like this, there's no need to mess with the motion system. So this is not clean, and I'm going to get stuff all over my head to try this on, but I have to try it on. All right, so that doesn't really fit, but let's go to the next print. I'm going to print something fast. This printer is printing really accurate at a moderate to slow speed, so let's get it going about maybe 120 millimeters per second. Let's see how it does. I'm going to go with a model that doesn't have any overhangs or any need of supports so that we can really take a look at the quality. I'm going to leave the minimum layer time in place. Let's take a look. Okay, so here I set up this test, and this is our speed test. You'll notice there's already been a layer shift right here. It's not super concerning at this point. I haven't dialed in anything not to catch on here. I didn't do Z-hop or anything, so this is just a test print. But I also set this test up with a small spool so that I could check out the filament runout sensor, which you see here. The filament has run out, and the light has turned off, and now we can turn down here, and apparently it does tell us that we've run out. Yes to heat up and change the filament, or no to stop. So let's give this a shot. We're going to say yes. Manually change the filament. Click yes to continue, or no to stop print. Okay, so it's going to heat back up here so that we can change this. So you notice it gives us a nice little progress bar so that we can see how long it has before it's done heating. It's going to heat up back to what we had previously set it to, which for this test was 220. Alright, since it's back up to temp, it assumes now we can manually change the filament. So let me set down the camera, change out the filament, and we'll check out the resume. So this is a couple of sample spools from my maker box. This is push plastic PLA. Let's see if I can get this out now that it has stopped. This mechanism definitely doesn't give you a lot of room to mess with the filament once it has stopped. And see if we can get it out. Push up, pull down. Well, just enough room. It could be a problem, but if so, you could always pull the tube out of the top. Now we should be able to reload our filament. Notice it moved the head over here, so we should be able to get a good clean pull before we tell it to resume. Okay, that went in easily. We got the filament flowing. We now have green. Of course, I didn't have to wait till it came out, but that makes me feel better to know. I want it to actually be oozing there just a little bit. I'm going to pull this off. We don't want it to cool down too much. So it's good to be watching when it runs out. Otherwise, it could cool down and dislodge the print. So we're going to say yes now to continue. And it's going to heat back up the hot bed because that was cooled down a little bit. So luckily it did not cool down fully. We don't have to worry about the print coming off the print bed. And it should pick up where it left off. There we go, fully back at temp. And it's going to pick up right where it left off without any problems. So filament runout sensor is a check. What's interesting here also is that since it rehomed when it found that when the filament ran out, then we actually are correcting our layer shift right here. So we're going to have another layer shift, but this one's intentional because it's basically starting back where it came from. So let's let this one finish because I basically want to look at the quality at this speed. So as I mentioned, when I did the filament change on this, there was already some layer shifting going on, and the green did not help. The green actually made it a little bit worse. So let's get this off the build plate and I'll tell you what happened. There we go, came right off as expected. And what you'll see is, so I was printing this really fast. So this is printing at 120 millimeters per second. Not all filament can keep up with 120 millimeters per second, whether it is not running hot enough or it just can't extrude that fast. And so you'll notice, even though this is the same brand of filament, the green filament does not react the same way as the red does. So let's take a look at the red because, again, we're looking at quality here. We want to see what the printer can do. So taking a look at this, you'll notice the consistency, again, just out of the park on this. Every layer is exactly where it's supposed to be, even though we were printing extremely fast on this. If you see what happened on the green was not able to extrude fast enough. So I either needed more heat, possibly a bigger heating block on it, something like that, because that just wasn't going to extrude fast enough. But the red was beautiful. This is a Layersalot from Printed Solid. Looks great. Again, the printer, the only thing we can say that it didn't do well was we did have some layer shifts, which means that there could be something possibly wrong. Just a little bit of tweaking possibly either to the slicer to make sure that we're not catching on the model, or possibly to the printer. Maybe we're not getting quite enough power to one of the steppers. So last print for this video. Let me straighten up here a bit and I'll give you my final thoughts. So here we are at the end of the video, and what I want to do here is just sort of sum up my thoughts and feelings on this printer and give you my final impressions given the amount of time I've had to spend with it and the test prints that you've seen me print. Keep in mind this hasn't been a full review and it wasn't meant to be. This is an assembly and preview video. It's a new printer and I basically just wanted to get it out there in front of all of you so that you could basically see it actually work in the hands of someone else. Keep in mind they sent me a beta unit, and so everything I'm saying about this printer possibly could change. I don't really expect it to. I know that they've already started shipping units as of publishing of this video, so people other than me will start having these available very soon and can give you their impressions as well. So first of all, the print quality. Let's lead off with that because the print quality on this has really blown me away. It exceeded what I expected. Keep in mind, I'm an Ender 5 user, the original Ender 5, and I've spent a lot of time with that printer. And this printer is definitely an upgrade. So not only does it have a bigger build volume, but it also prints better. And whether it is the stability and the construction of the printer, the dual Z axis, the fact that both sides of the bed are supported, who knows? It's probably all of those, but it's a better printer and I'm getting better quality out of it. With that in mind, I'd also like to point out one of the negatives of the printer, and that is the sound. This is a noisy printer. Creality chose to go with one of their existing mainboards, the 2.2, which is in some of their other higher end printers. But on that mainboard, we have the A4988 drivers, and those are loud steppers. And because they're loud steppers, this is not something you're going to want in a bedroom or in an office. You're probably going to have to put this in your basement or somewhere away from anywhere that people are trying to watch TV or sleep or anything like that. It's a loud printer. Now, keep in mind that's something that's upgradable, but for what could be a flagship printer, it's kind of a disappointment that it didn't come with their 114 board or a new variation of the 2.2 board that actually had the TMC stepper drivers that would have given us a silent printing experience. Back to a plus, I mentioned the size of this print bed. Now, on the original Ender 5, you couldn't print a full-size helmet. It would have had to been cut up into pieces. It has pretty much a standard size print bed, the 235 by 235 or the 220 by 220 actual print size. And so you're going to be slicing things up. You're not going to print your large model. So obviously, I love this printer for that reason. I like that this printer does come with a glass print bed. That was a great choice. Given the size of the print bed, having glass immediately, and not only that, but having a thick piece of glass immediately gives you a flat surface to start with. And in case there are, discrepancies in such a large flat surface, it does come with the BL Touch. So the BL Touch will then, compensate for any problems or slight bends in your build surface on top of the manual leveling that you do. Now, as you saw, there are some firmware issues with the printer, particularly related to the BL Touch. Right now, it's not real usable, but I've let Creality know that, and I do expect that they will come up with a firmware fix very soon, and I will be happy to report back either in my community tab or maybe in a full review of this printer later on. A couple of other things that Creality could have improved on this printer. First of all, it would have been nice if it would have come with the Capricorn tubing. I know they sell that in their store, but why not include it as a default option? It's a few bucks more. Even if they would have passed that on to the consumer, I think that would have been worth it. It would have saved us a step. We were going to buy it anyway, so save us a step, go and include it with the printer. Also, I think this default X gantry is getting a little old. And what I mean by that is the extruder works fine. I have no problem with the way that it actually prints. But we need some dual cooling on this printer. If we're going to print fast and if we're going to print good overhangs, we need better cooling. So I think that Creality should spend a little bit of time revamping this, coming up with some dual cooling fan solutions. And even if it becomes an aftermarket product for us that already have these printers, it'd be a really nice product to add to their lineup. And it would fix some of the overhang issues and some of the stringing issues that you saw in my test prints today. And finally, let's finish off on a high note. Keep in mind the electronics on this printer were really good. So while I can complain about the noise of the printer, the electronics of the printer worked really well. The touchscreen was really good. I like the design of it. There's a few screens I might have changed here and there a little bit, but overall it was a really pleasant user experience. This touchscreen is very responsive, and as you saw, the motion of the printer is super smooth. Those A4988s may be old, but they really still do a really good job. And the filament sensor worked great, as you saw. There's plenty of other things I still have to test on this printer, so don't think this is my last word. I do plan on following this up with a full review, but I'm going to give this printer a little bit more use, and I'm also going to give Creality a little bit of time to address some of the issues that I found that I sent to them even before I published this video. And I think it's right that I give them a little time to maybe tweak the firmware, see if they can work out some of those issues, and then I'll get back to you and let you know how it's doing. So if after all of this, you find this printer as impressive as I do, and you want to take one home for yourself, I have a link in the description that will take you directly to the product page on Creality's own website. As of the time of publishing, I think that's the only place you're going to be able to find this printer. You can order it direct. They have a great warranty. They have great customer service. I say that as a person that has shopped there direct myself, way before they ever sent me this printer. My original Ender 5 came from there as one of the first 10 printers. Great experience. I've ordered from them plenty of times before. So I'm praising Creality because they've done a good job and they've treated me well in the past. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that it's been informative as well as a little entertaining. If this is your first time watching one of my videos and you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to see the future videos I have planned on this printer or others, hit the little bell icon, you'll get notified. And if you want to support my channel, I have both Patreon and a PayPal me link in the description. I appreciate you watching. I got a lot more to come on this channel. I'm Chris, and this has been Kersey Fabrications. Thanks for watching.